Nice.
Ah, okay, I just wanted to hit that before I forgot. Let me pull up my questions. And I did go through the videos and tried to, you have such an abundance of videos up there.
I didn't expect you to watch them all.
No, but so I tried to look for like the ones where that it would help support the questions I had,
Uh-huh.
or that I guess LightRoot has. And I believe I found that you guys have been around since 1991. Is that correct?
That's when like the visioning started. Yep. So
Okay.
the process of creating the community started in 91. Yep.
Okay. And then do you know when you guys actually kind of started? Like it was actually began, or was it?
Well, I mean that I would say like that's our first public meeting was in 91 to like
Okay.
conceive of plans, talk about the land purchase and mission and vision. People actually like moved into the first homes in 96.
Okay. Cool. Let's put that down. 96. That's awesome. That's 5 years. It doesn't feel like it's that long
Right.
with how quickly things are growing. And I was curious, what was your initial draw to the community?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I learned about the Eco Village at Ithaca a long time ago. I was here in Ithaca like in I want to say it was like 99. Um, and so I had heard about it then and it was on my radar and like it sort of intrigued me, the idea of living in an intentional community. And and it's something that like I explored over lots and lots of time as kind of figuring out my adult life. I lived in a cooperative house in Berkeley for a little while. There was like 11 people sharing one house. And then I moved to back to this area um, to take a job as a professor at a local university. And it was a big goal, it was like, all right, it's time to like move to an eco village. And this one actually is, I think, kind of an outlier in that they have rentals, which is
Mhm.
amazing for folks that can't necessarily afford to buy a house, right? Um, so that was fantastic. And went through the membership process a little bit from Oregon when we were in the process of moving, and then found a rental opening when um, we got here. But yeah, I mean, I've been a sustainability educator for a really long time and a big believer in ways that we can create community and um, lower our footprint at the same time, right? By sharing resources. And like I learned a lot of that in the co-op. Like we had two fridges for 11 people, right? We had one washing machine and one dryer for that many people. And we did like, we had chores and somebody would do a shop for the whole house and we'd share meals and it works really well, and like makes life easier when you're supported in those ways. So I'd learned that in that sort of microcosm of what it's like to live in a village, right? And I've also traveled quite a bit and lived abroad and um, gotten to live in places where there's more village structure, right? And there's more like sort of intergenerational support and extended family and that concept of what it means to um, be in this together. Like I've been in a lot of cultures where that's still the case. So that was really inspiring as well. I usually say that it was the like sustainability factors and the ecological footprint factors that drew me here. But the community aspects have been such a wonderful like advantage of living in a
Mhm.
space like this, right? I'm a single mom, so I just get so much support, as a single parent, living in community. So
Oh, that's amazing. I could feel that from you, even just from the moment you started talking about it,
yeah,
of just having that tribe there to support
yeah,
raising your child in this
yeah,
world.
yeah.
Um, and some of them I might ask clarity because the questions that I got from some of the videos were answered, and I just want to just see if
Sure.
there's other.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so and you can, I guess, just say what I was gathering from like the conflict resolution system is like conscious communication, nonviolent communication, co-counseling, and then just deep curiosity and openness
Hmm.
there. And then I think I saw it was also conflict transformation as kind of the process.
Yeah, we have a conflict transformation team that helps support like when there's disputes among neighbors. I've never engaged with them directly, so I don't know a ton about it, but like, we have a team of trained facilitators, mediators, folks that are really good at NVC, that will, intervene if called upon. And I think it's kind of, just a mediation process. Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
That's what I was gathering. I just wanted to make sure or to check.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's a really important piece to think about ahead of time, right? Like, how will you support?
mhm.
Like, there's obviously like in whatever. I'm curious to hear if you all have thought about governance styles yet, but we have two neighborhoods that do consensus and one neighborhood that does sociocracy. And
Mhm.
so I've been able to observe a little bit of like what systems like support things moving forward. I'm biased, I will say, because I live in the neighborhood that uses sociocracy. So and we just like it just seems like a very useful way to sort of like the slogan is safe enough for now, good enough to try, right? And or good enough for now, safe enough to try. And so it enables us to like move forward on decisions and kind of get things rolling um, in a more expedient way, I would say. And so the idea isn't that like everybody has to be happy, right? Like the idea is everybody has to be like willing to try things out. And so I think that ameliorates some of the hard moments when people really get stuck because they're just not willing to give them something a go in a consensus model, right? So
Okay, cool. That was, I think, one of the videos I watched was they were part of your village, your neighborhood. So,
um
yes, so sociocracy. That was a new word for me. I'm like, I've never
uh,
heard this.
it's definitely worth looking into as a system of governance.
Yeah.
It's really good, like well functioning, and there's excellent organizations that do trainings and
Okay.
yeah.
Good to know. Yeah, I did write down some of those resources that the gentleman named. I can't think of his name now. Uh, so there was curiosity around like what kind of conflict resolution training is there for the community?
Hmm. I don't know. I mean, we've had workshops in the
Okay.
past, and I will say, like, I've only been here for 3 years, so I apologize if I can't answer the like questions in depth. We've had workshops on like nonviolent communication that are open to our community members as well as like the general public.
Okay.
Um, but I don't know that like we're such a large community. There's like over 200 adults here, right? So it's not like we have requirements about that kind of training, right? So it's more of an opt-in opportunity.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So there isn't like a frequency of training. It's just kind of when things arise, you guys will host a workshop there that's open to the community or outside.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. I think one of the videos said that there's kind of monthly neighborhood meetings where they gather.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So our structure, we actually have like 5 legal entities here. So each neighborhood is a cooperative.
Yeah.
Um, and so they have their own board and their own like budget and processes, right? So each neighborhood meets monthly, and then there are committees, within each neighborhood that work on all the variety of needs for work to get done, right?
Okay. That's beautiful that you guys have such regular intervals with the meet with the community with the group that you're in as well as then the committees. I'm guessing will meet however often they need to meet.
Hmm.
And what is the perceived support during conflict?
Um, in terms of like an interpersonal conflict or something that's coming up within a meeting or um
I guess either one, I guess, because I mean, what I saw was like a circle support with the way that you guys do things is the circle way.
right.
But I didn't know if there was more.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, I'll give us a plug for sociocracy. Like within those spaces, one of the things that I really love about it is that in those meetings, like there's room for everyone's voice, right? And it's very intentionally structured that way so that we do rounds and every person has an opportunity to speak. And then if, there's something that you need to add after your round, like that's an option as well. And so there's like usually a question round and then there's a like comment round. And it's just such a lovely way of like encouraging participation and making sure everybody's voices are in the room and the way that just as observing how it works, like the ideas really build upon each other, as people are sharing. And um so I think having that intentional structure really helps support dialogue and communication and it ensures that everybody has space. And then we have like a facilitator for each meeting that makes sure that there's equity in that process, right? And that we're reining things in if people are taking up too much space or, and it's all done very gently. And but I think the more structure you have in place to support that, like it just becomes an expectation and people, understand that you're going to get cut off if you're going too long-winded or what have you. So that's how it works in my neighborhood. In meetings and it works fairly well. I think, like I said, it's a fairly efficient system. And I think, it's so interesting because I think each community is going to have its own culture, right? And within our community, there's like different cultures in the neighborhoods, I would say. And it's partially because of the governance model that we've chosen, I think. So, it's also, obviously like who lives there and what personalities come out. Um, but it is pretty interesting to see the like different characteristics that show up in different spaces. So yeah, so my experience really is in this neighborhood and it's lends itself to more of a bureaucratic functionality. Um, but on the personal side, like I said, the conflict transformation team is a team of like trained mediators and neighbors who you can call on at any time, like if you're having a dispute with your neighbor. I have not, like I said, I've lived here 3.5 years and I have not heard of a lot of conflict. I know things were different like during COVID when all, we're trying to establish protocols for that. And it was really challenging because there was a lot of diverse and tense, right? Like fear, I think, during those times. But yeah, there hasn't been a lot that I've heard about that's bubbled to the surface here in the last couple of years. So
Okay, awesome.
yeah.
And I want to, is there more to this question? Like for effective tools and practices, I put down some of the things of like conscious communication, the nonviolent communication, the mediation with the conflict resolution or transformation team.
Mhm.
Is there, I mean, deep curiosity and openness as well. Is there anything else that you would name for tools or practices?
I think it sounds silly, but I think like just assuming best intentions, right? Like I think we all show up with a desire to be in community with each other, right? And so um that that helps, right? Like if you just assume that people are speaking from a good place, right? And trying their best. Yeah.
If you know of any, and there might not be any, but is there any ineffective tools or practices that you've noticed even in the last 3.5 years that you've been there?
Mhm. Right. List serves. I mean, Yeah, I mean, because we're so big, I'm just being really frank with you.
Yeah.
Because we're so big, we don't, it's a challenge for our community. Like, how do we communicate with everybody? And how do we communicate with everybody in a like way that's not drowning us in emails? And so we use a lot of different styles of communication. So we send emails, we have listservs for a whole bunch of things. But like if there's a community event or an announcement that everybody needs to have, we like put little door tags on everybody's door in case people aren't email people and aren't checking, and there's often like posters up in the common houses and that sort of thing. Um, and we've recently, since I've been here, tried to keep like discussions off of the email listservs. So when there's anything that needs conversation, we have like a it's called Gather. It's like a wiki space where we can have like forums that are specific to a topic, and there can be conversation there. And then if it has to happen in person, then that's reserved for the meeting space. But that can get really unwieldy, right? Like if there's dialogue happening and if people are trying to track on email, and especially if it's something important, right, that needs all eyes and ears on. So yeah.
Yeah. So you found that having those like gathering meetings would support that process to facilitate the conversation versus
Yeah.
like email back and forth. Okay.
Yeah.
And then as far as the only thing I could find in the videos was like a common reason for leaving. People that
Mhm.
might leave would just be they weren't a good fit for the community style living. Is there any more that you would say or that you've noticed?
I don't know any you know, like that we have a common reason that people leave.
Okay.
I mean, there's turnover, and I guess I'll say that um, our membership process is really intended to expose people to what it's like to live here, right? And so we expect people to come to some social events. We expect people to volunteer on our work parties to get a feel for like what the work commitment is. Um, just kind of have conversations with people and spend some time here and get a feel for what it's like. And then it's an opt-in, right? So if you feel like it's a good fit for you, then like we trust your judgment, right? So we don't have any formal like interview process or anything like that. So so it is a very like self-selecting process. And I do think too, because we're so big, um, people move here for a variety of reasons, right? So like I said at the beginning, some people are really committed to that ecological mission. Some people are really committed to living in community and not wanting to be alone, and right. Um, and so there isn't like a single sort of like unified identity, that draws people here. Um, and we're trying our best to um, kind of embody like a core mission of ecological lifestyle and intentional community, right? But that shows up for different people in different ways, right? And um, so yeah, I mean, and I think um, we have a good balance in co-housing of like private space, public space, right? And there's lots of introverts here, and like you can really sort of control how much you engage in community events and stuff if you're more of a private person. But yeah, I mean, I think that turnover occurs probably, I mean, like I said, I know during COVID there was a lot of challenge around like how do we, as the science rolled in, it's like, do we require vaccination? Do we not? Like, how do we manage community events and spaces where we want to be together. I wasn't here then, so I can't speak to any of the specifics, but I've heard these, kind of stories but that was a really challenging time. And, how do we still maintain our commitment to supporting each other when we can't physically like be together? And, when kids are home from school and the parents suddenly have so much more burden, and you're just weighing those risks, right? I think it was a really, really hard time. I'm so curious to hear what other intentional communities did. So I know that was a time that was hard for us to navigate, and we did lose people because of those tensions. But other than that, I think it's jobs and those sort of typical reasons why people will move.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you knew, like, who would you say thrives there? I put like it's a self-selecting situation, like you named, but do you know like who thrives and stays?
Who thrives? Yeah, I mean, there's people that have been here since the beginning, right? There's like we have a lot of sort of founders here still. So it's 30 plus years, right? And and we're really making an intentional effort to support aging in place. So our third neighborhood, which was completed in 2015, has a lot more accessible infrastructure, and we have 15 apartments with an elevator. So folks that are getting older, right, are living in that space with no stairs. Um, and yeah, it's interesting to kind of see how the progression, right, of how a community ages, um and with the desire to like recruit new young families, right, to keep it like sort of intergenerationally vibrant, and also I think in terms of the functionality of like the workload, like that balance is it's really wonderful and interesting to see how that works, because there's so many folks that are retired that are doing so much of the work here, and like um so yeah, I would say like a lot of folks that have time on their hands to do work and have passion to like contribute to the community, those folks um are keeping us going. And there's grace for folks like me that are raising kids, right? Like that's seen as a value to the community, right? And um so we understand like different life circumstances like support different levels of engagement, and it's all valued, which is really wonderful. um so yeah, I would say like it's really lovely to see people stay. Until we had a couple that moved out recently that were in their 90s and were still gardening and doing woodworking projects. And our oldest resident right now I think is 88. And and then I would say on the other side, like folks with young children thrive here, right? Like there's so much like support, there's so much like access to, I like I have 175 acres of land for my kiddo to play on, like, and gardens and farms, like we have a U-Pick farm, like we can go like celebrate with our neighbors every week to pick up our food, like because there's a CSA on site that we walk to, and there's music and playground equipment, and it's just really fun. We have like swimming ponds, and we ice skate and kayak and stuff, and so infrastructure for children is really amazing too.
So yeah, I saw that in some of the videos. I was like, man, I want to get up and move, but I'm on my family's generational land, and I'm like, I'd love to start an intentional community here someday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful to get this experience of just seeing what is possible.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. Are you interviewing lots of communities?
I'm volunteering to support LightRoot Collective, so I've got to participate in two.
Okay.
So they've kind of distributed the workload amongst
Nice.
us. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I know you've only been there for 3.5 years, but do you know of any burnout or disillusionment experiences?
I do, yeah. I mean, as I was saying, like the folks that uh come with passion and enthusiasm and time, like um that crossed my mind as well, because some people are so enthusiastic, right? That like they take on too much. And I think that's a constant question mark. We're working on it at the moment in my neighborhood to try to, it's a hard conversation to try to think about, like, okay, what are the essentials in community work? And that depends on your perspective so much, right? In terms of what's essential. Um, and the no decisions have been made, but the conversation has been brought to the fore of like, maybe there are some things we should pay somebody outside to do, right? Like if we can't do it all ourselves, and like when, sort of weighing the cost benefits of that. And and yeah, I think it's tricky because there's just always like people with vision, right? Like which is who eco-villages tend to attract. Like there's always more to do, and there's always cool projects to try. And I think that's one of the amazing things about an eco-village is there's like space for that experimentation, right? And support for folks bringing new ideas to the fore. But it can lead to burnout if you're not like managing your energy well, right? So, and I think too, like the way that that's dealt with well
Mhm.
is to just talk through that with your neighbors, right? And like if you, I mean, people have taken like breaks from committees and then come back, and I think there's a definite like support for give and take, and acknowledgement that um like life happens and we need some flexibility, right? So yeah, there's definitely a lot of support for that. And I think just having, like sort of individual like clarity about that, and then the communication skills and trust with your neighbors to talk through like how can we still meet this need if I can't do it, right? And, yeah.
Hearing the theme of communication is critical.
Yeah.
People doing their work of like staying resourced to say what they can speak into or what they
Yeah.
can give.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, the financial part is where I struggled finding information. So I like one of the videos talked about shared resources, like the land is held collectively and part of the land is owned by the Eco Village and part of it's through the land trusts.
Uh-huh.
And you can own a home or lease a home, but it's just their shareholders and members. Is there any other like anything else you could say about the financial structure?
Sure. Yeah, so like I said, we're cooperative, right? So you buy shares when you buy a home. Um, and it's quite interesting. Like you own the interior of the building, but the co-op maintains ownership of the exterior of the building and the land. So if a tree falls on your roof, like there's a separate fund that would support repair for that. That doesn't fall to the homeowner. Um, but they are responsible, like I said, for anything internal. And and there's you can qualify for a typical mortgage. And I believe that the way that it's calculated is it's based on the size of the home, just like the number of shares that you buy. And then they also include some of the square footage of the common house spaces. Because we have shared like kitchen facilities, laundry facilities, guest bedrooms, all of that. So that can be calculated in as part of people's mortgages. Um, and yeah, we have a variety of like from like 1 bedroom apartments to 4 bedroom single family homes, right? There's a variety of sizes of homes. We're definitely like a kind of trending towards like middle class, upper middle class, right? And our home prices reflect the home prices in Ithaca. Um, which, it's a university town, so it's rising quickly. But we do also have affordability funds that support folks with like down payment assistance or you know that helps in terms of the finances when purchasing a home. And then there's also like different sort of in-house like financial supports that are kind of like neighbor to neighbor in cases of emergency. So
Mhm.
yeah, and I can send you information about that if you're interested.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe because it might help with some of these. Well, I'll ask the questions and then we'll see. And
Okay.
your fault, yeah.
Yeah.
What is, if you know of it, what is the biggest financial challenge?
Hmm. For an individual family, yeah, or for the community as a whole.
I guess I would say for the community as a whole.
Buying land was a
Mm,
really tricky thing. And to me, it's one of the most interesting stories about this community. Um, we had a gift that somebody offered land 10 miles from town that they were willing to, it was an acreage that they owned and they were interested in building a community on site. Um, and they grappled with that and they decided they wanted to be closer to town because of the transportation impacts and the ecological impacts of that carbon footprint. So um, to me, that's such a wild story, to give up free land in order to like stick to those values. So I do know that like at the beginning, there were loans. Some of the loans were forgiven, right? Uh, and we were one of the earliest like co-housing communities in the United States. So there wasn't a lot of like precedent for like how do you manage something like this? How do you convince the banks, right, to like lend? So a lot of the legal structure I think was challenging in that way. But yeah, there was a big push to get debt free. I can't remember the year, but they kind of made it a goal to like get debt free by the end of maybe 2000. Um, and yeah, so we had some very generous like loan forgiveness from the part of individuals who invested in the community early on and made a huge difference. So yeah.
wow, that's really beautiful. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was beautiful. And then in terms of subsequent costs, I would say like um paving
Mm,
is the biggest thing. We have a stretch of road that comes into the community that's not paved, and then there's a section of road that is paved, and that's my my understanding is that that's for school bus like turnaround, they had to pave it. But to be here for over 30 years and not have paved the road to come in, it's just a huge expense. So we fill the potholes with gravel every year. I can't imagine like how much it costs that it wouldn't be cost effective to spread that out among just 100 households, over 30 years. Like it must be a really significant expense, but I think they're still paying off. I don't, so because I'm not a homeowner, I don't see the like detailed bills. But I think that there is still a charge for the pavement that went in the center of the community. Yeah. And that's another piece of the financial puzzle. So you have your mortgage and the cost of the home, and then there's a like residential
mm.
fee every month, and that's based on the number of shares that you own. Um, and that covers stuff like paying back that road payment and garbage fees, like garbage and recycling and internet and stuff like that. And so,
So like you're naming, it sounds like it's distributed amongst the residents. Like if they're like the response to the financial challenge, like the paving,
mhm.
that sounds like it's being distributed to the members, the of the cooperative. Is that true?
Yep. Yep.
Okay,
Mhm.
cool.
Yep.
And is there, if you know it, is there a financial decision-making process?
There are, yeah. I mean, in each neighborhood has one, and then when there's stuff that affects the whole community, that goes through we have a village association that um, owns owns the land, and they are the ones that are responsible for those shared resources like the road, right? Like the farms. So there's different processes in each neighborhood or each entity. But it generally involves like um meetings where shareholders will come and have conversation, and then there's like decision making processes. Yeah. Sorry, that's a little vague, but
That that's perfect because you said you rent, so it's going to be like there's only probably you don't know all of it.
right. And because there's five organizations that do things a little differently, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you know who has input on the finances? Is it once again the community and the shareholders?
Yeah, I mean it's anybody that's a stakeholder, right? So in Tree, like anybody that's a shareholder can votes on the budget every year, um and there are different committee level like responsibilities, right? So we have like an administrative committee, there's a finance point person that within the administrative committee that like keeps track of budgets and taxes and that sort of thing. But it's all very transparent, and everybody gets minutes from those meetings and access to all that information.
Um, and I read that or I saw that there's like I know you have the CSA. Is there any other income generating strategies for the community?
We're not an income generating entity. So some eco villages are. So we have some folks that like do make their living here, but it's not like supported by the community in any like formal way. So yeah, we have four farms on site. One of them is managed by a nonprofit. Actually, I would say two now because one of them is managed by a high school in town. Um, and then one is managed by folks that are like residents that are volunteering. And then one is a for-profit like farm that's also managed by some folks that live here. And then we have gourd shop, which is really amazing. Really unique. They have their own building and shop on site, and they dry gourds and then carve them and make beautiful lamp art out of them, and it's really unique. Um, and then we have office space in our common houses, so we have like a slew of acupuncturists and therapists and physical therapy, like massage therapists and um, somebody who does martial arts classes on site, that sort of thing. But it's all individual
Okay.
businesses.
Oh, it's cool that you guys have that availability.
It is, yeah, it is nice.
Um,
I should say, so my position, I run the outreach and education organization. So my position is the only one that's paid like in community. And it was originally the organization that I work for was originally part of the um, nonprofit organization that owns the land. And it was sort of all seen as one entity for a long time. And then there was I think it was when they became land owners, they created their own 501(c)(3) because the organization that we're fiscally sponsored by didn't want to own the land. So we separated off, and like we're now a fiscally sponsored nonprofit organization that just does the outreach and education. Um, Complicated, lots and lots of legal entities here. I'm still learning like who's responsible for all the pieces, right? How they all function.
yeah, but what a beautiful like umbrella to put that under of having it under the nonprofit to do the outreach and then have you as in a paid position so that you can have that to support your family.
Right. Yeah, yeah, it's great. I come from higher ed, so it's really wonderful because I mostly work with like higher ed classes that come here in person for tours and workshops and such. So it's a good fit.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Um, and then I found some information about the governance model. This, well, the one I was the sociocracy,
Right.
and then the other one's the consent.
Consensus. Yeah.
Yeah, the consensus.
Yeah.
Um, I got a number of strengths, so I feel like I'm good with this. That was the main one that was talked about was the I can't say that word socias. I will be getting clear with that one.
Yeah. It's also called dynamic governance, so that, it's a little easier to say.
Do you know anything about like zoning issues? If there's been any zoning issues and how those might have been overcome?
Yeah, I don't know a lot of the details, but I do know that like we are located in the town of Ithaca, so we're outside the city limits, but we're in the town. And it did influence a lot of our early decision making because of zoning requirements. So um in terms of like we're on the electric grid, we get our water from the city, like all of those sort of things that might have been more grassroots if we were in a more rural area, right? Like, um, and we're just getting to a point where the city of Ithaca is um, exploring like own your own power initiatives, which is really exciting. There's some conversation about what that could look like for us. Um, but they created a special like designation through the planning board, right, when we were created. So we have our own like zoning code. And it's really specific, in terms of like agricultural use. And I know this because we're exploring the idea of building a outdoor classroom in our forest land. And there's like really specific like designations of like what we're allowed to do and not do, right? Like we can do, I think it's a no, I can't remember. I think it might be like a 500 square foot, but it might be larger than that, like cabin in the forest land. So there's like really specific designations that were thought through very early on in terms of the parameters of how we can build on the space. And we were slated, when the design went through, it was supposed to be 5 neighborhoods. So we do have some leeway there. Like there's no intention of building any more neighborhoods, but I do know that there's some
Hmm.
flexibility, right? Like if we wanted to explore that. Yeah.
Okay. And if you know, like anything around like maintaining trust and accountability with like the system, and you can speak for your neighborhood because it might be different in the others.
Uh-huh. I don't know a lot about that because I wasn't here during the building process, um, but yeah, I think like we interact with the appropriate officials, right? And like make sure that we run plans by them. And like that's coming up now with this intention to build this outdoor classroom space. We've kind of explored like, are there ways to do it within the parameters of it being sort of a temporary shelter, right? Versus like going through a permit process and working with the appropriate officials. And so we just, have a lot of conversations about that, but always make sure we're in compliance.
Yes.
Um,
And is there any like formal or informal agreements, or is that all part of like the governance model that you guys are following with the dynamic?
in terms of like with the town or
I guess with the town or within the community.
there's lots of policies. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, within the community, there's tons of policies. We have yeah. Um, and a lot of that is done at the neighborhood level. Some of it is village wide, but yeah, I mean it's everything from like I like to joke about this one, like there's a 2 outdoor cat per neighborhood policy. So you can imagine like it's a good example. I love to use it with students who are like crazy about pets, but like it's a good example of like how you make decisions when there's competing values, right? And desires. So the pet owners are really passionate about their cats being like independent and happy, and then folks who are really concerned about bird predation, right? And nature and preserving habitat, right? And so that could get
Mm,
intense, right? And so being able to listen through those kinds of debates and come to a mutually like agreeable decision. It's it's just a funny sort of like seems really small, and yet it probably took a really long time to come to that decision, right? And um yeah, it was one of the first things I heard about when we moved in because we have a cat, and they're like, if you want your cat to be outdoors, they have to get on the wait list, you know? It's like it's really funny.
well, I appreciate the thoroughness because it sounds like the structure allows everyone to thrive in the community because they kind of know like this, and then we're open to conversation and experimentation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And I think one of advice I would give
Mm,
that I'm seeing has been a challenge is like and it's partially just because I think of the way that society has evolved over the last 30 years. I mean, you think about like early 90s, like we were just getting computer based, right? Like with stuff. And so yeah, in terms of like the paper trail of how decisions were made and why, like documenting that is really important. And we're still trying to like figure out systems for like where do we store all of our meeting minutes like in a way that's accessible to everyone. We're just like um migrating everything to one space right now. And um so it's we're dealing with a combination of like there's papers files from the 90s, and there's I just had to like digitize our blueprints for folks that are interested in seeing like what the buildings look like. And um so I think that's a really important piece of advice is just like having a track record of like when decisions were made and why, and like being able to like easily communicate that with people because folks who move in and didn't go through that process, like I find it's really helpful to like understand the reasoning behind rules, right? Than just like have the rules posted and not really understand why. Like for me at least, like um I find it more meaningful to like adhere to things if I understand the rationale. So yeah.
well, you kind of led me into the last bits of questions I have, which is reflections. Like, so what is there any other advice that you're like top 2 to 3? And you said documenting. Is there any other advice that you might have for new communities?
Mm. I think thinking through the membership process, like how you're going to invite people into the community, is really important.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily have advice on like how to do that well. There's a lot of resources out there from like the co-housing, Coho US and
Mhm.
Foundation for Intentional Community. Like there's a lot of workshops around that sort of thing, but it's something that I think it's a challenge for us, both in terms of like the balance. And this is all my opinion. It's not like official for the community, but I think the balance of like workload for the people that volunteer on that committee, because we have a lot of interest, right? And a lot of people come through and a lot of people like want information. Um, so it's a lot of work on the people that are, spearheading that and shepherding people through that process. Um, and um, I think it's really important to be sort of intentional about what your goals are for the community. Like, do you want it to be intergenerational? Do you want it to be diverse? Do you like economically, socio demographic, socioeconomically? Um, And I wish I knew like an easy way to like ensure that those things happen, right? But um things like affordability funds, like thinking about that up front, you know, if those are priorities for your community and how you can integrate that into the membership process or make people aware of those opportunities. Um, because I do think that like there are some tensions there in our community in terms of like I said at the beginning, like I don't necessarily think we have a cohesive identity that like everybody would say this is what we're all about and this is why I'm here. You know, it's a different story for everyone. And in a lot of ways that's really beautiful, but um in some ways like it does cause resentment if, you know, if people are really here for the ecological reasons and some people are flying a lot or you know, driving a lot or whatever it is, right? You know, I think that um, some of that could be ameliorated by like our onboarding process and our just making sure that we're really like consistent with communicating our values, right? During that process. So that's part of my job that I'm working on bolstering at the moment. Um, but again, it's that, you know, it's an interesting, like, I think the spirit of like having it be a choice that people say, yeah, this is for me, this feels right. Like, we're not gonna make that determination for anybody. Like, yeah, I don't think there's a perfect answer for it because, like, how much can you get to know a space by visiting for a couple of days, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Is there any like community successes or like proud areas that you want to acknowledge?
for sure. Yeah. I mean, the fact that we've like got, I think, I mean, it's a beautiful community, right? It's very well functioning for how large it is. Um, I love the fact that I think what's so interesting about this community is that like we built three different neighborhoods at three different
Mhm.
periods of time that were sort of modeling the most affordable green technologies at the time. So it's a little bit like a living museum of like in the 90s, this is what green technology looked like and green building looked like, right? And we're retrofitting things and we're thinking about decarbonization now of that neighborhood. And so it in some ways it mirrors like, okay, we did the best we could in the 90s and now we're, you know, trying to move to upgrade. Um, but there's different character in each neighborhood in that way that's really cool, especially for students that are studying like green design or something like that. It's really neat. And that's, you know, not something that's easily replicable intentionally, but it's a really cool feature of our community, I think. Um, in terms of replicability, I think we're doing food really well. And so centering farming, centering regenerative agriculture, you know, having um yeah, I mean it's just the land was pretty degraded when we arrived and it's flourishing now, right? Because of habitat restoration, because of regenerative farming practices. People always remark that when they get here, they just like hear so many birds, right? And um so the fact that like we've got habitat and we've got food production happening in this way that's really healthy for the land is amazing. Um and so yeah, I'm just really, really proud of our farmers. And it helps us connect to the wider community, right? It's not inward focused. It's something that like we're able to support food system health for the entire region. And a lot of our CSA shares are subsidized. So they're just like, you know, for low income folks. So I'm really proud of the work that they're doing. Um, and we have a nonprofit here that's training like BIPOC farmers and um, it's like an incubator space for people that don't necessarily have access to land, right? Um, and so that plus the fact that like we have a really vibrant cook team. We have meals together every like 3 times a week, and we source as much as we can from our local farms, and we really celebrate around food. We have like a pie baking contest every, when berries are ripe, and we um every time there's like any kind of arts exhibition, like cooking, there's a culinary like aspect of that, right? That we see food as an art form, and it
Mhm.
really is the glue that I think like brings people together in community and like nourishes us literally and like, spiritually. So
Yeah.
um,
It's to me, it sounds like it speaks of like when people can live in harmony with each other and the land just starts to regenerate with that love and that care that's going into it.
yeah, yeah,
And it just speaks because any land back that I've seen or been a part, like seeing like, and I've been there, I'm like, the land is flourishing because of the way it was held,
yeah.
and that, yeah, that right relationship. Is there anything? The last question I have is there anything that you know of that you would do differently?
Mm. I mean, I think I spoke to that a little bit about just like making sure to document, making sure to like think through the membership process. I'm trying to think if there's other things. I mean, I think, in terms of like what are some of the challenges that are coming up for us now, like but as we talked about earlier in terms of like mitigating burnout and managing the workload, like that's something to think through early, right? And like in terms of what are the jobs that are important to the community, and like how will you value and honor everybody's contributions, and how will you make space for people when they have challenges in life that make it so that they can't do as much time, in terms of the community. Like that balance is an ongoing tricky conversation. So I don't know that I have an answer for doing that differently, but I just think of being intentional about thinking that through early on is some advice I would have, just given what I'm seeing, emerging as still ongoing challenges, even 30 years in, right?
Right. Well, you even named that you're working on the membership part. You're like, oh, that's a piece I need to start working
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I just like scripted out our tours so that they're a little more like consistent, right? So that people are getting the same message each time they come through. So yeah.
Cool. Is there any other, like, do you have any referrals or anything to any other communities or individuals that you think might be
Mhm.
beneficial?
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about the process that you all are going through? It's literally like fact finding in order to design a community, or
Yes.
okay.
Yes. It's doing, yeah, exactly that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, Coho US is great. They have tons of like resources and webinars. Foundation for Intentional Communities is same. I'm really involved in the Global Ecovillage network. And yeah, I guess it depends on like what what aspect you're looking for help with. But um I found that being connected to the wider communities movement has been really enriching, right? And just it's an opportunity to like connect with people that are going through similar challenges to us, right? And sharing resources, sharing knowledge. The Global Eco Village Network work that I'm involved in, it's like a community of practice
Mm.
internationally around climate resilience. And so they've been meeting for 2.5 years to think through like how can eco villages stay on the forefront of thinking about how to model change, right, in the face of climate change, and how to model like well-being and resiliency. So that's been really, really rich to just I'm in meetings with people all over the world, and yeah, to learn lessons from other communities has been really, really valuable. So yeah, link yourself in to to those networks, because there's a lot of people that have tried and experimented with a lot of stuff over the years. So
Yeah. And it's better learn from, to me, I'd rather learn from others that have tried it and figured out what didn't work. And
Mhm.
there's so much unknown.
Right.
But thank you just for saying yes to this like interview, but choosing this way of living because I believe I'm so with where you all are already. I'm not there yet, but I'm like I desire that so deeply.
Yeah. And how special that you might be able to do it on intergenerational family land and have that deep connection to the place. I really think that's beautiful. So, yeah.
Appreciate that.
Um,
Is
I'm
there
happy to circle back if there's other questions that come up as the
okay,
community, progresses, like feel free to
okay.
reach back out.
I will. I appreciate your time and energy today and just the resource because watching those videos was so like it just gave me so much hope.
Oh, good.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Was there any lessons you had from the early days? I didn't know if you would know that because you've been there for only 3.5 years.
Yeah. I can, I mean, lessons, like, is there anything specific that comes to mind? So I'm actually like working on a project right now uh, for this climate resiliency work I'm interviewing, like it's an oral history project, and I'm interviewing folks that have been here for a while that to talk about resilience and like how did we overcome challenges in the early days. So I'm happy to share that with you all as that comes together. But yeah, I mean, there's stories like I don't know if you've come across this. We do have a book. So if like Liz Walker, who's one of our co-founders, like wrote a book. So that's something that you might want to check out because it has sort of details of a lot of the like what was the loan process, like how to, like all the early uh details of how the community came together. But yeah, there was a so this is a highlight from the book and from other things that she's written is that like the day that she had her housewarming party in 96, I think there were 6 families that had moved in. Um, like people left the housewarming party and then there was a fire and um it got sparked when like one of the contractors was blowing insulation into the walls and so like a spark from his truck got blown into one of the walls of the house. Um, so we lost, I would forget the details, but we lost the common house. We lost like several of the houses that were still under construction. Like none of the houses that people that had moved into were impacted, but I just cannot imagine like I mean, for one, like designing a community as lay people coming to agreement about what you want the vision to look like how much labor and love and passion and heartache goes into that process. And then to have a fire like the week you move in, like it's amazing that they survived that, like and that they were able to rebuild and keep yeah, fighting for what they believed in. So that's one of our early stories of resiliency. Um, but I think it is really grounded in that, like, this is a passion and people are committed to like doing things differently, and like having having vision and having that sense of empowerment that we can build it ourselves, right? It's so beautiful. I really miss like as someone that moved in after all of that process was done, like it blows my mind that like how much work, and I really admire that you all are going through that. That must take, but I just feel like it must be so rewarding to go through that process as well and see it come to fruition.
Yeah. Well, you like what you just named, I think speaks into one of my prayers, which is like for me, for the future ones to know me by the landscape that I have left them with.
Love that. Yeah.
Not so much about my name. It's not about me. It's about they'll know that they were tended to and cared for because of the landscape we left them with.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. My dissertation studies were on like place attachment, so that's very very
Mm.
close to my heart. Yeah. Love that. Cool.
Well, that's all the questions I have. Yeah, if anything else arises, I will definitely reach out. And if you have any other things as you're excavating some of the history through your
Sure.
memory of different people that are still living there. If there's
Mhm.
anything else you wanted to share, I would love to hear it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, good luck with your process.
Thank you. Good luck with the way your role is expanding and just all the things that
Thanks.
you get to do and potentially having like a place to teach outside.
Yeah.
That'll be really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right.
Great. Well, nice to meet you, Jenny.
You too, Jen. Have a beautiful day.
Okay, you too.
Bye.